Hey guys, Jason here at Cooperative Motorworks and Motorhome Rehab Ranch, back with a second part of the fuel venting system. I had told you I would show you a charcoal canister taken apart and kind of what makes it up, and also I'd like to show you how you can turn this canister into an actual charcoal canister. So I'll take that apart and show you the tools needed to do it. So I'm here under a coach. This is an old 73 coach. So, you know, first year they were made. So a few things are a little bit different, but basically you can see the fuel tanks up here above me. So this is the front or auxiliary tank. We kind of talked about that in the last video. Up here inside this frame rail, you're going to see the fuel hoses. You can see these ones are in pretty rough shape. We've got this is probably your main fuel tank hose, which is all flattened and cracking, which I would definitely check your fuel hoses if you haven't yet. And then you've got the other one here. So these two, oh, that one's actually the vent line, but these two hoses here go to the AB valve, and then from the AB valve it comes out. This is your main fuel supply that goes up to the mechanical fuel pump originally. When this AB valve gets power to this top port, it switches from the main tank to the auxiliary tank. So that's kind of how that works. But again, we're going to talk more about the ventilation system, but you know, had an opportunity to show you guys how this was set up for the fuel supply, so might as well do it. All right, so from there, we got the 5/16 hose that's coming along here, and I believe it's this one right here. No, it's not this one, it's this one right here. These are very brittle hoses right now, but this hose here that goes up through this little pinch here between the body and the frame, it comes out and hooks into a metal line that goes across right in parallel with the passenger side brake line. We might be able to get a shot of that. Probably easier to pick it up over on this side. Here you can see the charcoal canister, and this hose right there, that tube, is the one that goes to the charcoal canister. This hose right here is the vacuum line that goes up to the intake manifold. It may actually go to the carburetor itself. We mostly do fuel injection here, so it's not often that we're putting these things back together with the original setup. But this basically hugs this frame here. Sometimes they have a little screw with a P-clamp that holds it on here, and then it goes up the front of the engine and to the intake manifold for the vacuum. So now it is possible to use this new canister in that same spot. If you are going to put it in that same location, I would take the vent hose and I would run that up as high as possible. You can put a hose on here and run it up and then put a fitting so that this could be mounted high. That way this is the only real leak point, so if you did fill it up and it got gas in it, that's going to be a high point. But as I told you guys, I'm going to show you the insides of one of these original charcoal canisters. So this one we cut apart, and you can see on the top of it where it says tank and carb. So tank obviously goes to that metal line across. You can see it actually broke off inside there. A lot of those are rusting out. So again, check all your vacuum lines, all your fuel lines, stuff like that, because you know these things are pretty brittle. I mean, I can't even, yeah, that just broke in my hand. So not exactly what they originally should have been. So from here, the tank one vents into the center hole. I don't know if I'm catching the light here well or not. This other hole here, that's the one that's going to have intake vacuum. So this piece here is kind of a little baffle. That was glued to this. And you can see the way it's set up is the one coming from the fuel tank that could have fuel coming through it. It goes into the center of this. And it's kind of meshed here. And then that's going to dip down into the charcoal. but then it's going to pull vacuum through this screen basically, and through this piece of foam that acts as a filter, keep the media from getting sucked up into the intake manifold. So that's how the original setup worked. Then at the bottom of this, it's going to be hard to see, but I have another one that I'll show. There is another piece of foam. I don't know if I can get it out. There we go. There's a piece of foam down at the bottom under all the charcoal. And then there is a screen at the bottom, which I'll show you on the other one that I have taken apart. And then another piece of foam, and then I believe there's just like a little crossbar that holds that other piece of foam in, and then it all drains out this bottom part. So this is the bracket that got screwed into the frame, and then this piece gets bolted on here. Probably the easiest way to remove all of this is you undo the clamp here, get the charcoal canister out of this bracket, take off these two bolts, take that piece off, and then you can get to these bolts behind. They're really hard to get a socket on. You can put a wrench on them, but you can barely get any turns on them, and you can't really put a ratcheting wrench on it because as it backs out, it goes into this bracket. So that'd be the easiest way to take it apart. You can see this one is one of the brackets that had been taken off. So it had been unbolted here, all rusty and falling apart. So here is another one that I cut apart. I did kind of same, cut it into pieces, maybe just slightly different, might be from a different model year, but it looks pretty close. Inside you can see the charcoal media. So I don't know exactly what kind of charcoal they use. If I was making my own, I would use probably coconut charcoal. You can get it for like fish tanks and stuff like that. You can buy quite a bit of it for fairly cheap. They use it in like water filters, stuff like that. I'm going to dump this one into the old one, the other one. You can see the media coming out. I don't know how easy this is going to be because I haven't done it before, but might have to break this up a little bit. Yeah, this stuff's a little caked in there. I probably would not want to reuse this media. So. I'm just going to dump it on the table for now. All right, there we go. And you can see the foam here at the bottom. That piece can just kind of come out of here. This is I don't know what this is, like cotton or something. And then you can see the other screen here. So this is all glued together. And then you've got the other piece of foam at the bottom. Check that out. And now you can see through from either side. So that's the way they designed them. Now the way I would modify this setup is I would take the cap off here. So this is just an empty canister. Set that aside. Comes with this little baffle here. I would unscrew that baffle out of here. I have everything loose so it wouldn't take me forever to take it apart. The little baffle has a little C-clip here that can be popped off. You'll probably want to take that off to modify the baffle. I'll do that in a second here. This little filter, the bronze centered filter, can be removed. And that piece can be discarded. You won't need that. You can put the filter back inside here. And obviously you tighten it up. There is a port right here that fits a 1/8" pipe inside it. I did tap it. I have the tap right here. So this is just a 1/8 28 BSP tap. So I ran that in here already and got it threaded. And I would put a little bit of like sealant or something, you know, some type of thread, like pipe sealant or something like that on this, and then I would screw that into this port here. You know, want to tighten it a little bit tighter most likely, and then I would take this little baffle plate, and I marked it. I'm not going to drill this one out, but I would drill a hole right here that will line up with the port here. So let me pop this C-clip out and show you how it can come apart. Alright, so once that C-clip's off, this comes off, this guy can get screwed back in. And then if you drill the hole in the proper spot there, it'll go through with the pipe and then sit on this little shoulder. So it'll be up here. I'm not going to do it on this one because we may use this baffle for something else. But if you have that hole drilled, I would probably use like a 1/2-inch drill bit. I have a step bit here, but you can see a 1/2-inch drill bit would be just enough to clear this piece of pipe. So then that can all go together. You could put a piece of foam on top of it to keep it from getting sucked up in here. Now this does have the filter built into it, so that's fine, but if you want to keep that from getting clogged up with the charcoal and stuff, you could take something like this foam and put it in between somewhere. Then what I would do is I would put another piece of foam at the bottom of this piece. So you can see I put just a port in it. These canisters come with several different size ports. Like I think this one's 3/8. There's a 1/2-inch one and maybe a 1/4-inch one as well. So you could probably put the smallest one, maybe the 1/4-inch, and put that in. And you can leave that open, or you could just leave that port open completely. But I would probably put it in and I would run a hose down low so that if fuel does go in here, it just drips out of that. If you have the piece of foam at the bottom, you can fill it with something like this media. I would get new one, like I said, but that could go inside. And then when you screw this on, if this goes into the media, then you have it acting as a charcoal filter. So this is going to act the same way as one of the originals. I put the little drain valve up here at the vacuum port so that you can run this to intake manifold. I wouldn't want to run it max vacuum personally. I would want it metered slightly, so I'd probably have it open just enough. And you may have to tune your vehicle slightly after doing this because you now have unmetered air coming from someplace other than the carb. Unless if you have the carb and it is running through the carb like the original setup, then it may already account for all that. But if you're running fuel injection, then I would tune it after that. Most fuel injection should automatically be able to tune that out of it, but you may have to adjust the idle air control to get it to run properly. So then this is the line that would go to the tanks for the venting. We'd like to run a little bit larger stuff when we're running the single aluminum fuel tank. If you're running the original tanks, it's 5/16 lines coming off the tanks. You can put them into a T with a 1/2-inch line coming off of that, and then that could run up here, and you'd probably get close to 1/2-inch ventilation on that. If this is something you're interested in, definitely reach out to us and we can help you set this up.